Okay. Well, with that, it is after 6 o'clock, so we can call our meeting to order. And with that, first up, are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? If not, well, I guess first we probably need a roll call. I'm sorry, I skipped ahead here. I guess, Sarah, you need a roll call first. Are you set with that?
I am all set. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now, are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Seeing no motions, we entertain a motion to accept the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Support.
Motion support. Sarah, would you like to take the roll, please?
Yes, thank you. Roxanne,
Yes.
Mayor,
We can't hear you, Greg.
can you give me a yes or no, Greg?
I did, yes.
Oh,
Did
thank you so
I couldn't
much.
hear it?
No.
I'm sorry.
Do now.
Gotcha now. Larry,
Yes.
Nick,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Audra,
Yes.
Roger,
Yes.
thank you.
Okay, I believe that motion is passed. So now we did skip the Pledge of Allegiance, so let's get that taken care of as well. So if you please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Aaron, do you put up the flag, or is that Matt doing that?
It's Sarah.
Sarah, okay, Sarah then. All right, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
Indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you all very much. We obviously didn't rehearse that, so. Next up, we'd like entertain a motion for the approval of the June 9th, 2020 regular meeting. Your pleasure.
So moved.
Support.
We have motion and support. Sarah, would you please call the roll?
Thank you. Mayor, can you start, please?
Hear me, yes.
Thank you. Larry,
Yes.
Nick,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Audra,
Yes.
Roger,
Yes.
Roxanne,
Yes.
thank you.
That is passed. Next up, we'll move down to the consent agenda. Commissioners may remove any items, or approve the following item with one resolution, or you may remove it for the follow discussion or additional discussion vote. We only have one item tonight, and it is the request for payment in the amount of $10,815 to Core Technology Corp. For annual software support and maintenance services for the Elma Police Department computer system. So, your pleasure.
Motion.
Support.
Motion from Larry and support from Roger. Is there any comments or questions? Okay, hearing none. Sarah, would you please take the roll again?
Thank you. Larry,
Yes.
Nick,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Audra,
Yes.
Roger,
Yes.
Roxanne,
Yes.
Mayor,
Yes.
thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. That motion is also passed. Moving down to recommendation on bids. First up, we have consideration of a resolution to receive and award bids for the 2019 capital improvement project of Hayes Avenue and to approve the corresponding request for purchase. We received three bids on June 17th, 2020. The low bidder being Wards Excavating LLC, and the low bid was $640,064.70. The high bid was $732,184.70. The recommendation from staff is that we approve the low bid of Wards Excavating. Your pleasure.
Move approval on the
Support.
the
We have
recommend.
motion support. Does anybody have comments or questions?
Is this
Dave,
the
do you
new
want to give some
company?
background here? You have some color for us? Anything, Dave?
No,
Yeah,
Larry, it's not a new company. Ward's did my street, I believe.
That's correct, Michelle. This is Hayes Avenue from Michigan Avenue down to Marquette. This is actually was supposed to have been done last year, but due to some time constraints, we've had to push it off to this current calendar year. But it's still an FY 2020 expenditure, and the idea is replacing the storm sewer, the water main, and the sanitary sewer. If any folks remember the pictures from 2 weeks ago, that's about what we're running into for sanitary sewer. That's pretty well in tough shape there. There is some drainage issues we're going to contend with down at the the central location of that. It's a tight right of way in there. And this is part of our annual street reconstruction program for the street millages and local road tax and things like that, and your fuel tax. But this is part of the annual street reconstruction program.
We'll open it up. Does anybody have comments or questions for Dave? Okay, hearing none. Well, I guess I've got some comments, or at least one comment I'd like to make that, I've done a little bit of analysis and run some of the numbers on this, and unfortunately, I don't see a sustainable model with the way we're doing these things. I think we're going to have to really take a hard look at how we're spending these dollars. It's a $640,000 project. I don't know. It's not a major thoroughfare. It's going to be a very expensive road. I'm sure it's going to be a very nice road. Certainly the water and sewer underground work is probably desperately needed. I'm sure those pipes are probably some of the oldest ones in town. Where we will perhaps in the future save some money on these projects is the overlay of the finishing top coat when we're done, because I don't know how we avoid the underground. That's going to be tough. That's got to be done. But, we're really looking at, I don't see any future that doesn't include some gravel roads in town. And I think it's just going to be a matter of, it's either going to be the roads we select for economic reasons, or we're going to just have roads that self-select to turn into gravel. So I think I just want to give everybody in town and on the commission a heads up that I think we've got some hard choices ahead of us when we start looking at future projects. That the economic viability of the way things are going just doesn't make sense, and we're not going to be able to continue like this. So that's my opinion on this and what my analysis has done. And I think, I know we're going to have further discussions on the topic, probably at least in the finance committee to begin with, and certainly with everybody going forward at some point. So just my heads up on what my thinking is on this. And, I'm sure it's going to be a great looking road when we're done, but it's unfortunately getting so expensive we can't afford to continue doing things this way. So that's my 2 cents worth. Anybody want to rebut?
I just want to ask the question. How do you, so then people whose roads become gravel, they don't get plowed? Because you can't plow a gravel road, right?
I don't know, Dave. Can you plow a gravel road? I know some cities don't do local roads, and that may be a possibility as well.
Well, you can plow gravel roads, although I would strongly, advocate against that for several reasons, because we do not have this. Because when the road is falling apart, for example, when we plow those streets, we have asphalt chunks and gravel. Any of you that live on old streets kind of know that in the spring we do have gravel piles and stones, and we always get calls about raking those. And those are the paved streets that we do have. I staunchly cringe when we talk about gravel roads because we don't have the staff manpower or anything like that to go through and rake yards. The second reason would be if we were looking at like a gravel model, we do not have the equipment to do road grading in a gravel fashion. So we would have to invest in a road grader and additional staffing to keep those up to date. We have 2 gravel roads right now that are in town still. They're remaining. The plans are eventually to replace those. One in the next couple of years we will replace due to the sanitary sewer project up on off of Pine Avenue. So gravel roads take substantially more maintenance just due to drainage. They tend to be potholed. Anybody who's driven them out in the county can kind of attest to that. You'll also have brining that'll be involved with that. They are very cumbersome and time intensive to maintain. They certainly are an option, but with the staffing levels and the things that we have, it would definitely be a game changer if that's something that we look at. And the other thing is currently these streets that we have right now are slated were the voted street millage. Streets that we do have budgeted for to do. We still have 2 streets left remaining on the annual millage, or excuse me, on the 6-year plan. Those are Harvard Street and River Avenue. So that's what we look at when we look at the annual road millage model and try to find out to fit within that budget that the millage does a lot for.
I don't disagree with anything you said there, Dave. I know that the gravel roads bring their own headaches. The future as I see it, and, obviously we want to explore other alternatives, whatever may be out there ahead of time. And certainly you're going to be an important part of that conversation. But as I see the future right now, unless we find a different solution, we're going to have gravel roads, whether we do it by choice or not. We're either going to choose them or they're going to choose themselves.
Some of those may happen through attrition. Several years ago, at least the commissions, it was not a policy, but it was a goal that no streets in town go to gravel, and that would have to be revisited through all the commissioners. Currently, we just did a seal coat project here just actually last week, and that is typically what we'll do to the streets that are the most catastrophic and failing. This last model that we did streets that were not at that portion, trying to look at maintaining the Payzer ratings where they're at and try to elevate those. But we have several options. But yeah, some of those, if there is no money for seal coat or anything like that, that might be an avenue to pursue, as if we just let them decay into that type of a situation, I guess. Like a better.
And that will be a last resort, I'm sure, because nobody's looking forward to that. I certainly don't advocate it, but I mean, I can see the road in front of my house right now. It gets worse every year, and there are sections of it that, it's going to gravel no matter what we do, or without replacing it or putting an overlay on it.
Mm-hmm.
It's turning to gravel before our very eyes right now. And it's by far not the worst street in town.
Correct.
So that being said, are there any additional comments or questions? We do have a motion and support on the table. Hearing no further comments, Sarah, would you please take the roll on this one?
Yes, thank you. Nick,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Audra,
Yes.
Roger,
Yes.
Roxanne,
Yes.
Mayor,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
thank you.
Okay, that motion has passed. Thank you very much. Second item under recommendation on bids, we have consideration of quotes received for painting the interior of the Elmo Public Library and a resolution to award the project and approve the corresponding request for purchases. The winning bidder was Dave Donnelly Painting and Drywall of St. Louis, I believe, or Riverdale, was it? Was it Riverdale?
Yes, Riverdale.
Riverdale.
Thank you. Sorry about that. And that bid was $18,500 even. The high bid was $19,833. So very tight range of bids there. Staff has recommended the Donnelly, the low bidder, at $18,500. So we'll entertain a motion to approve that.
So moved.
Support.
Second.
Okay, we had a motion and support. I believe it was Roger and Audra. If you didn't catch that, Sarah. Comments? Who has the first comment or question? Or David, do you want to give some background first?
This was part of, it's been on the CIPs for a couple of years. We were looking at doing sections of the library, but based on the budget allotment that we had, there was an idea to do the entire library, and based on the prices that we have, those are still well below our projected budget forecast for what we were anticipating, which is a good thing. So the library has not been repainted at all since it was brand new in 2007. There are two those computer labs or meeting rooms. Those have been done through public works staff just recently in the last couple of years. But if anybody's been in the library, you've noticed that there's definitely some blemishes that have started to show up through public use and things like that. So what they're going to do is patch the drywall, make necessary repairs, and then also paint each section. And what we'll do is the public works staff will work ahead of time to move those shelves. The library staff will have to unshelve the books and then unshelve the stacks. We will relocate those, allow them to get touched up and painted. and then we'll put them back, and the library staff will replace the books. Anything that can be moved on the wall that's not permanently affixed, we will remove it so that it can be painted and the necessary repairs be done. So this is going to be not a renovation, but it's going to be a repainting of the entire library and fix it back up again. So the colors are scheduled to stay, so we'll match them as good as we can. And if there's any other questions, that's the project in a nutshell.
Okay, literally sounds like a heavy lift.
It'll be cumbersome, and it'll definitely be a lot of work for everybody involved, but hopefully it'll be nice when it is done. One plan that we wanted to try to look at just during the COVID shutdown was looking at doing that, but if everybody remembers, we were not able to do painting during then. So, if a perfect world, we'd have it all done before everybody it comes in for to visit it when it opens up, but unfortunately that won't be the case. But they will be able to enjoy a new parking lot surface as far as we seal coated that and striped. If anybody's got a chance to take a look at that's been overdue. So there'll be a number of things that happen this year for them to be excited about, hopefully.
Okay, thank you, David. The first comment or question? Not hearing any. I want to compliment you. The parking lot does look great. I appreciate that. I also appreciate the sign. I know that's been a sticking point here in my house, so I'm really happy to see that done. It does look fantastic. It's nice to see that and looking really good. And certainly the library is a extremely important building, probably our heaviest used building that we own and operate. So I'm sure it's like a school. It gets beat up pretty bad. Just not that anybody's abusing it, just because it's used so heavily. Yeah. So with that, I also had a question on the bid that we're talking about, because it is such a tight spread. And the bids that, when I was reading them, it looked like some of the bids were very specific as far as the type of paint they're using, I guess much more specific than others. And the low bidder seemed to not have those details in it. And my own experience is that, when you talk about painting something, the labor is extremely expensive, paint's expensive, but there's a big difference. You could buy a cheap paint and it doesn't cost you any less in labor, but you certainly don't get the product that you need at the end or that you want at the end. So I'm a little bit concerned that we didn't specify specific paints. Mm-hmm. Do you have anything worked out that's not contained in that document, David?
No, the one thing we were concerned with is that we wanted to make sure everybody got a good chance to walk through the building to see what they were up against as far as the blemishes that need to be fixed. I walked it with one contractor. I know Bob Albrecht, the building superintendent, walked it. And I think Lori walked it with them with the others as well. And we wanted to have them get a good gist of what they were looking at and how encompassing that building truly is. We did not specify a paint brand or anything like that. Manufacturer was really irrelevant to me anyhow. The finished product was that it was painted and the walls were repaired. As far as contractors go, I have no loyalty to any one of them, so it's up to the commission. I've not worked with any of them direct. We also looked at if there was a potential for local preference, but when I got the second opinion from Sarah, the local preference pertains only to Gratiot County, because I looked at the vicinity of Kevin Mann, but he's not in the city limits or anything, but the procurement policy only goes to Gratiot County. So it can be whoever the commission's more comfortable with. I really don't have a say. I'm not loyal to either one. Just made the recommendation based on the low bid with this one.
Well, I know it's been my experience that there can be, and not necessarily this guy is going to use a inferior quality paint, but the ones that did specify paint, I have a high degree of confidence in because of my personal experience. And
I'm going to abstain from this vote, being related to one of the painters, but just a statement is Donnelly Painting has done work for our employer, and he does use good paint also. So, but I will be abstaining from the vote because I'm related to Mann's Painting. So,
is there a way for us to find out what kind of paint he's going to use before we can vote tonight, but before you actually commit, because it does make a huge difference in the length of time that you're, cleaning the walls, and big time. So, it's a matter of it being bad in 2 years versus 10 or 15. So I think I didn't catch that, Greg. Good catch. Cause That's really important, in my opinion. It could save you a lot.
And I would agree. And I think if the motioner and support was in agreement, we could make the motion contingent upon Dave's satisfaction that the quality of paint is equal to whatever the other bids are, so that we're not getting an inferior product at the end. So I would be comfortable with David's assessment of whatever product the contractor is proposing.
I'm comfortable with that, except for the fact that David said that the paint didn't matter to him. So
Well, I would expect him to be doing some more research before he does the quality comparison.
Okay.
Yes,
folks,
I'm not brand loyal was what I meant to it, but yes,
Okay.
a commercial paint product, that was my intention for it. I'm sorry if I misspoke.
No.
Hey, Dave, how urgent is it that this gets approved today?
Because this is an FY 2020 expenditure, I would like to see some kind of a approval tonight, just so that I can get this on against the 2020 budget year, because it is not budgeted for 2020.
Okay. Because everything else being equal, I would be more comfortable if you found out before we voted. I mean, that would make more sense to me. But I guess if it's important that we vote today, then I guess
Do you
remake the
want me-
motion. Go ahead.
I know him personally. Do you want me to text him and ask him?
Or
Is
if the
that allowed?
I'm not sure that would be
Oh,
fair to the
that's kind of
contractor to put him on the
dangerous.
spot right here and now.
Well, I can just ask him what kind of paint he uses, but he can send in something. It doesn't matter. Like I said, I'm abstaining from this one, but I'm pretty sure it's Sherman-Williams, but I can't
Yep.
quote.
Michelle,
Yeah.
I just texted Dave and he said he would be using Sherwin-Williams unless the customer requests different.
Okay.
Or if the commission's more familiar, if you folks are more comfortable with anything that was listed in the other bids, if there's a idea that you guys want to go with, you can go with any of the other ones too. It's entirely up to the commission. You don't have to go with the lowest bid. That is entirely up to the commission on how you decide. If one bid
Well,
makes
I've seen a lot of Mann's painting, and he does a really excellent job.
Donnelly painted the college when I was there, our areas, and he did a great job too. He was very efficient and polite and quick. So I don't know brand of paint from another, but I understand there's a difference between what's the cheapest and what's a better quality. So that's the limit to my knowledge. But I do know Donnelly painted the college quite a bit. So for what that's worth.
I think I'm comfortable moving forward. Dave, if you don't mind just mentioning to him to make sure it's something that, stains come off easily and easy to wipe clean and that kind of thing. But Sherwin-Williams paint's pretty good. So, and if the college used them, then probably a good painter.
Michelle said her employer used them as well at commercial. So my only experience is with Kevin's, and he does do excellent work, but that doesn't mean other people don't do excellent work also. And I do like low bids. So with that, are we going to amend it to include Dave's approval of the final paint selection, just to make sure it's in writing that he's got that authority to reject it if he finds the paint unsatisfactory? And I think, Sarah, could you help me? Who made the bid in the motion in the support?
Roger made the motion and Audra supported.
Roger and Audra, do you have that inclination?
I would be okay with the amendment.
Same.
Okay, any additional comments or questions, discussion? All right, hearing none, I believe we have an amended motion and support on the floor. So all those in favor, please indicate when called by Sarah. Sarah, if you would, please.
Michelle,
I'm going to abstain.
thank you. Audra,
Yes.
Roger,
Yes.
Roxanne,
Yes.
Mayor,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
Nick,
Yes.
and that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. That motion is passed as well. Moving on to resolutions. First up, we have consideration of a resolution to amend attachment A of resolution 2020-00021 and to add the closure of business route 127 Pine Avenue to Wright Avenue on August 21st, 2020 through August 22, 2020 at 10:30 p.m. for the purpose of celebrating Elma hashtag in the middle of everything street festival.
So moved.
Oops, I'm sorry. We have a motion? Somewhere?
Motion and support, or I can either be one, motion it or support it. I don't know
Pick
who
one,
Sarah
Michelle.
heard. No, I don't know if Sarah heard me. I said it so moved, but I don't know if she heard me. Her.
Roger, are you good with second?
Certainly.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so we
Hey,
do have a
Greg?
motion and support.
Greg,
Are-
this is Tony. When I was reading this resolution, do you want to specify a time on the 21st of August? I didn't see that on there.
It would be 6 p.m.
So they're not going to barricade until 6 p.m.?
Right, because it wouldn't start Friday night until 8 p.m. So we have to
It's
set up
closed until 10:30 on Saturday night. Is that
on Saturday. Correct.
Okay. So
This is
we've
a keep
set-
your fingers crossed, folks, because this is what we're hopeful we can do on the 21st and 22nd of August, depending on where the world is at that point in time and how many of us can gather. But this is quite a few of the different groups, Elma Action, KB, the Aspires group that have all come together to really try, and two of your commissioners here that are actively involved in that, to see if we can't come together. Open some things up through the Highland Festival Committee that we've talked about in the past, but I did speak with MDOT and they would just like an amendment, and it appears that at this point in time they're very, very apt to look at this with and be positive. They want to see communities doing these types of things.
Terrific. I think it's a wonderful idea. Kudos to everybody involved. I know there's been a lot of discussion, and it sounds like it's going to be a really exciting party, so I'm looking forward to it. I think we did have, based on Tony's advice, a slight addition to the motion as it was made to add the 6 p.m. on the date of the 21st as far as the closure. And I believe Michelle made the motion and Roger supported. So if it's agreeable to those two with that adjustment.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so our motion is amended. Is there any additional discussion or comments, questions? Hearing none. Sarah, would you please call the vote for us?
Yes, thank you. Roger,
Yes.
Roxanne,
Yes.
Mayor,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
Nick,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
and Audra.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, that motion is passed. Thank you all very much. And again, our thanks to all the various committees that have been involved in that. So that's just going to be a great thing. Next up, under agreements, we have one which is a consideration of a resolution approving project authorization for 2017-00004 /P15-revision 1 section 5311 operating formula grants for rural area programs for the year 2021. Also to authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute the agreement on behalf of the city of Elma. And the notation indicates that the purpose of the revision 1 is to increase funding and change the reimbursement percentage from 18% to 36% due to the CARES Act. So we'll entertain a motion to approve.
Approval.
Roger? Is there
Support.
support? Support is Nick. Okay, who has the color for us on this one? Matt, are you doing this, or Brett?
This is just through the CARES Act funding through MDOT, or actually through the feds, but it's an increase. It's just they have for the remainder of this year went ahead and increased your percentage coming back from 18. They've doubled it to 36%. Correct, Brett? I didn't see you on there. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Certainly, that's exactly what it is. And from all indications, that'll be the same for next fiscal as well. So,
Like it's just a win for us, although it's not probably going to be a windfall because of the changes that you had to make in order to accommodate operations. I don't know if this covers the complete cost of the realignment and the adjustments that have been made, but it certainly is a step in the right direction. So
it'll definitely help us cover our costs during our slow period. So on a positive note, things are picking up, and we're hoping to be able to start bringing back some of our part-time staff very soon. So
Okay, good news. Any additional comments or questions? Hearing none, I believe we had a motion on the table. So Sarah, if you would please take the roll for us.
Thank you. Audra,
Yes.
Roger,
Yes.
Roxanne,
Yes.
Mayor,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
Nick,
Yes.
and Michelle.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, that motion is also passed. So thank you very much, and we'll get them, Brett. Next up, we'll move to reports, and Matt, you're up with the city manager's report, the only one we have tonight. So we'll entertain a motion to receive first, I guess, before he gives his report.
Move to receive.
Nick? We have a
Support.
second. Roger? Now, Matt, would you like to offer some?
Thanks. Just give you a little Tony, I think you may be the first person actually inside the building when we met yesterday and did some things, because most everything we're being able to take care of out there at the counter. And going through some things, as we had talked about, there's a real issue with calls coming in about different pieces of property and stuff within the city. And so we have decided we're going to bring back 2 of our veteran seasonal workers of the 6 to see if we can't start to get a handle on some of those things. To make sure that we can keep up. It didn't help with all the rain early. Everything grew like crazy. So getting over that hump here in the next little bit should be helpful. I have to tell you, it's been nice to see. We went down to Wright Park when it opened again. The playgrounds opened up. We hadn't done any weed whacking down there, and it was pretty overgrown. Showed up 2 days later, and I was shocked. I actually called and said, did we do that? I didn't think we had the people to do that. That's a community member. Somebody went out and just did it.
That was Dwayne Feast.
That's extremely nice, because
He
as we
did
started to see these things
Wright
pop,
Park and Kings Park.
and so we'll continue to hopefully see folks like that. I will tell you that the Public Works crew is looking at, we're on the 410s, but they're looking at a number of them volunteering coming in Friday of this week in order so that we can do some things to get ready for the 4th of July weekend. So I'm happy to see, and we've done some adoption here of this building of what staff's trying to do. So library is starting to kick back in. There's always a steady stream of cars now over there that are picking up. Larry and I are going to meet tomorrow to start talking about their next phase and when we can start to move in that direction. Greg had sent out a thing right as I was typing this the other day about the CARES Act money and some things that look to be coming our way. Then I had a webinar with MML on yesterday to talk about that. It appears that there's going to be $200 million available to come out to locals that will deal with first responders' payroll expenses, is what they're calling it, payroll expenses through April and May. Payroll expenses at this point in time looks just like that. It is what would be on your payroll that we may be able to get back. There's a portion of $100 million for some hazard pay funding, which would be over and above that would come out. We're expecting to see the guidelines from that from Treasury next week. It's going to be a quick turnaround. Kathy and I've had some conversation about that, because it's going to be a quick turnaround, like July 17th, that everything's going to have to be in from there. And then the talk again started a little bit on the next version of the federal some of the federal assistance that may be coming to local governments. So we'll see where that one goes. The water utility assistance portion also is in there that we'll be looking at to see if I'm not sure if we're going to be eligible to recover some of our fees. I think it's important that we look to reinstitute some of our things back. We're about $2,700 a month in credit card fees that we've taken since the start of this. So we're planning to put those back online July 1st, that we would go back on those. Let's see. The Celebrate Elmo we kind of already referred to. I just gave you a breakdown really of what hopefully that's going to look like. And we're really hopeful. The groups that have been involved have been really working hard to meet with all the merchants. The Highland Festival Committee of looking at their bands that were already scheduled to be there for the festival that are under contract, that we'll be able to utilize them here. Bringing have a discussion. Be frank. David already mentioned the library looks really nice, and I know, Greg, that sign, it was nice to see when they told me that sign was clean. I went over and looked at that. It came out really well, looking good there. In transit, the 3, and I have a phone call into Pine River who I haven't heard from yet, but I didn't see anything in the paper either. St. Louis and Ithaca, I know, did approve their the authorities that we had talked about earlier. And so just waiting on the last. Brett, did you hear anything from? Okay, so all 3 of them have? Good.
Correct. Yep.
Okay, so they have formed that, and so we will start into looking at the language with them for where they go next, and we'll bring that to you probably, I'm assuming, in the next week or 2, because they're going to have that ready to go so they can get on the ballot from there, and then actually start to talk to about how we're going to do continued forward, and then looking at the timeframes of when those monies, if passed, come forward. So that question last week, Greg, about where we're going to look, now we know who the players are, so we'll be entering into those discussions with them. And we've done a lot of work on our website over the last year, as everybody knows, and I'm happy to announce that Gratiot County Herald does their voting and all their things out there in the public, and we have the #1 website. Sarah, I don't know if that said in government or just period. I'm going to say it's period because I didn't see any disclaimer from that they really like the website. So I think it's gotten us through this crisis a lot with information gathering. And then I'm a little disappointed that Eric finished #3 because I think that's a little bit crazy. He deserves to be a little higher than that as the volunteer, but he gets burned because I think a lot of people think that some of the stuff he does because he works for the city. But I know he's probably, I'd give him at least #2 on the volunteer list, and I haven't seen who actually won yet, so we'll see. For somebody that's on this thing, I'm sorry, because I'm not meaning to diminish your efforts either. So, and then we have finally set the airport authority meeting. We'll have that on July 9th on the information I gave you last week to discuss the report and see where that goes. So any input and anybody who would like to either get with me ahead of time, we can talk about it, or wants to come to the meeting that night, it would be appreciated to get some input from you. That's all I got. Thank you.
Matt, can I ask, is the flower garden on the old middle school property part of Ryan's thing, or has someone else done that?
It's his property that he's allowing to use. Eric, who's, it's the community gardens, and I can't remember who's actually doing
But
it.
it's approved and allowed and it's all
Yeah,
okay.
it's on his property. Yep. He's allowed
Okay.
that.
Permission to do that, and they're taking complete care of it. So, yep.
Okay. And also the ice cream truck that is constantly roaming my neighborhood, is it allowed to be doing that? Do they have a permit or something? I thought people were supposed to have permits. It's constantly driving around in here, and I'm just curious.
They should have a permit. There's a $50 permit that this commission passed about 5 years ago.
Right.
We have a
Right.
permit to be doing
But
that.
have people come in to get permits, or?
Not that I know
Yeah,
of.
that's what
I haven't issued one.
Okay. Okay. Just wondered because
We'll have
he's
to make contact with them.
Yes. He's here all the time and it's creepy and eerie. So I just wondered if he paid his $50, I don't care. But if he didn't, I mean, and I don't know that there's social distancing. I mean, I don't know what the rules are for an ice cream truck in a COVID period, but I just was concerned about it.
Run out and check his permit.
Running out there.
Good. I haven't either.
You know, if you gave me a commissioner badge or a bat signal, I would happily do that.
Actually, there's 2 of them.
Yeah.
There's the orange van and there's a blue van.
I've only seen the blue. I did get a Facebook message just before we came on here tonight from someone asking if we could make contact with them because they don't come far enough down on their street where their kids can. So maybe we can kill 2 birds with 1 stone and get a permit and tell them that there are people that need them in their neighborhood a little bit deeper. So
okay.
We'll do that. Thank you.
They can bypass my block. It's okay.
Nice observation, Roxanne. I didn't know they were even out there. I hadn't seen them yet, so.
Hey, Roxanne, don't you work at the Loose Road School? If you bust this poor ice cream man, You got to deal with those kids in the fall.
Well, since those little kids aren't there keeping me entertained, I want to make sure there's social distancing at the ice cream truck, because when they come back to me, I don't, I want to keep them as minimally buggy as possible.
There you go.
Good luck with that. I just want to add my congratulations and thanks to the volunteers that are going out and keeping things up when the staff has been challenged to do that. I think it's a great decision to bring back some of the part-timers, Matt, to get some of the mowing and whatnot done. As far as Aaron, I just got to pass on that I've heard a few complaints that were, people are not keeping up with their mowing on different lots around town, and some, shall we say, extra items hanging around their yards and whatnot in certain pieces of property. So encourage Aaron and Eric to stay vigilant and get as many of those taken care of as you can. Keep on them. Okay. Anyone else have comments or questions? Hearing none, I believe we have a motion to receive the report and a support. So with that, Sarah, if you'd please call the roll again.
Thank you. Roxanne?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Nick?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
Audra?
Yes.
And Roger?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, that motion is also passed. We received your report, Matt. Thank you. Next, we have unfinished business to consider a request from DVNK Lapeer, Inc. and Oak Flint LLC for extensions of time to obtain the certificate of compliance for medical marijuana provisioning centers. Eric or Matt, are you going to take this one?
Greg, this is Tony.
Oh, Tony,
well, let me just give you a little bit of an overview, and then I think there are folks here that want to speak to the commission.
I believe so.
But as you guys recall, on May 28th of last year, you passed a series of resolutions with respect to the successful lottery participants, with respect to these provisioning centers. And you had, the ELMA policy, which was on the website from February, had kind of put forth the plan that was devised by you folks, which essentially said if we have more applicants than slots available, and that's what happened with the provisioning centers, that we would have a lottery. And the policy said that people who didn't win the lottery would keep their ticket for a year, because if successful lottery winners didn't have the license within that year period, would automatically then be open up for the next one and the next one and the next one down the line. So that was part of the policy. So when you passed your resolution May 28th, 2019, the resolution said essentially the same thing, that they had 1 year to comply with the requirements of the city of Elma, the state of Michigan, and receive their certificate of occupancy. In September, because I think, and Eric can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think because there really hadn't been as much activity at those sites as we had anticipated, Eric sent out a letter to the lottery winners and said, hey guys, our policy is such that May 29th date is really written in stone. And so it's important. You guys got to get rolling, because we're not going to move that date. Then of course, in March, COVID hit, and the governor, by order, I think on March 24th, shut construction down. So we were asked to extend the deadline. As of March 24th, there were days left before the original May 29th deadline. So the thought was, while we would toll that period while the construction industry was shut down. So when the governor reopened the construction industry, I think, and Eric could correct me again, I think he gave them another maybe 4 or 5 days and then added the 66, and that's where he came up with July 16th. as the date they had to have that done. And I believe you're going to hear from at least 2 of the provisioning centers who are asking for additional time. And this was your resolution. So it is your decision, ultimately. And with that, I guess I'll surrender the floor to whoever wants to speak on this.
Yeah, thank you very much, Tony.
Point of order first. Do we need a motion on this? Do we need a motion?
No,
before?
I mean, what I think what will happen is that you're going to hear from these individuals, and then it's up to you folks if you want to make a motion to extend the deadline if you want to do that.
I agree, Tony. We do not have a motion on the floor at this time. If someone cares to make a motion before we allow the gentlemen or ladies and gentlemen, whoever they may be speaking tonight, if anyone from the commission wishes to make a motion before they speak, you are certainly free to do so. Just make sure.
But Tony's telling us that legally, from how we set up the lottery, we are allowed to make an extension if we so choose. Is that what you're saying, Tony?
Well, I understand.
Let's say this, and I've talked about this with, I think, a number of the gentlemen, the individuals are going to speak, but you guys made the resolution, so it is you guys who can decide this. There is a question, obviously, now, and I don't know how it comes out as far as if you said, I'm going to extend it, then you might have some lottery losers, say the 4th, 5th, and 6th place lottery folks who say, hey, wait a minute, you said this. On the other hand, if you say, no, it's going to be July 16th, then maybe one of these gentlemen may say, wait, we're going to go to court and get this extension. So, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know how this is going to work out. I think I try to present it as fairly as I could, and it's up to these folks now to talk to you and see what you think. I don't think anything is legal or illegal, I guess is what I'm saying.
Okay, that's what I wondered. I just wanted to make sure that our process didn't stipulate that we had to stick to whatever date we originally set because of the lottery.
There's no illegality either way, as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you.
Tony, could you clarify before we start here, I guess, because we did allow this additional 66 days beyond our original 1-year agreement with these individuals or entities. Can you refresh my memory? Either, I don't know if Tony, you remember, Eric, or even Matt, you recall, did we actually approve that 66 days at this commission?
I don't believe so. I do not believe so.
We did not. No, that was a letter written from staff based on the policy and the ordinance that we have.
So at this point, technically, we have not granted that extension for the 66 days even. Is that correct, Tony, or is that?
The city commission has not decided to grant an extension. That's correct. But right, we said that the letter was sent out though because of the pandemic and the absolute shutdown, which was beyond anybody's control. It was thought that was a fair way to handle this.
And I believe it was a fair way to handle it. And I think informally, I have agreed to that, but I guess it concerns me a touch, Tony, because we did not do it formally. And, I'm probably taking as much blame for that as anybody else, that we probably should have.
Maybe I'm the one that's should be taking the most blame for that. And that's something, if you feel you could rectify that tonight too, then there could be a motion either way. Whatever you decide, you could make a motion and set that deadline date wherever you guys want to set it. The 16th of July or some other date.
Before we do that, here's how I read it. We passed the policy. We said 365 days. Once someone started that, once we approved it, the countdown clock started. At some point, just like if you're, Cape Canaveral sending off a rocket, the conditions were that we stopped our countdown. We stopped it because of something out of our control. That was an administrative decision by the staff. They never shortened the 365 days. They simply said those days are unavailable by decree of the governor. Now we're resuming the countdown. So we have not given people more than 365 construction days or days to finish this. And that's where we are. So I don't feel like that was anything that was something out of our hands. That was not an administrative act that someone was changing the policy. They were simply saying, stop the countdown clock until we can resume it by decree of the governor. who supersedes our things. At this point, what we're deciding is, do we want to stay with our policy? And we have obligations both to those people that won the bid and those that didn't. We have promises made, if you will, through the process. Do we want to maintain those, or do we not? That's really, I think, what it is. So before we make a motion, Roger, I would wait till we're clear on what's in front of us, what our decision is, and then if we want to make a motion, do that.
Nick, I was just concerned that we never made a motion to consider. Okay, there was never any motion. We just started in with talking about it. I want to make sure that that's legal.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't believe anybody's inclined to make a motion at this point.
Okay.
And since I don't see any hands waving, I'll go with that. And I believe is it Schaefer? Is that correct?
Yes, Mayor, David Schaefer.
If you would like to be first and take the lead on this from your point of view, please
Certainly.
feel free to share your thoughts.
Certainly. Thank you, Mayor and members of the commission. And Tony, thank you for the introduction. I think you summed up where we're standing pretty well there. My name is David Schaefer. I'm here with my colleague, Brian Etzel. He's also on the call. We're both with the firm Williams, Ratner, and Plunkett, and we submitted the 2 initial request letters for an extension, one on June 9th and a supplemental letter on June 17th for DNVK, Lapeer, and Oak Flint LLC. Tonight, Brian and I are going to be speaking on behalf of DNVK Lapeer, and we've got some people from the DNVK team with us. And my understanding is that some representatives of Oak Flint will be presenting on their behalf as well. I believe I see John McLeod, who's one of the owners with that company, on the call too. So I just want to introduce who we have on the call with us. As I said, myself and Brian. We've also got Marvin and Darren, who are part of the ownership group for DNVK. Remy Jonah, who is the general contractor we've been working with. And Tim Stewart, who is the civil engineer that we retained to help with the county drain relocation issue that we ran into starting back in October of last year. So as Tony summed up, we're here because we're asking for a little bit more time from the deadline that was set in the May 28th resolution from last year, and then informally extended by the city administration via the letters that Mr. Ripley sent out. And I do want to be clear that you as the city commission certainly have the power to change the deadline, both under Ordinance 801, your marijuana licensing ordinance, that says at Section 4A that the commission can take any action it deems appropriate for each application, and then under your general city charter, which gives you the power to amend or issue new resolutions. So it's certainly within your authority to take action today. So for DNVK, there were some fits and starts in the get-go. We were approved. While there weren't shovels in the ground right away, there was a lot going on behind the scenes. The application process for Alma was fairly simple compared to some municipalities. And once we were approved, we immediately went out and hired an architect. We got surveys done and we got site plans submitted. And we actually were the first group to receive site plan approval, I believe back in July of last year, for the initial site plan approval on the project. We didn't get shovels in the ground as soon as we want. We ran into some problems with the county drain that took several months to resolve and figure out how we could legally move that and what agreements were needed. Tim Stewart's going to be able to talk about that in some more detail because he was working both with the city and the county on that project. And then we also had COVID-19 happen, which was a big unexpected change for everyone. But as we stand right now, DNVK has put approximately $400,000 into this project already, and we'll be spending more money assuming they can go forward. And the building itself, I don't know if you've been by the site on Warwick Drive, but it is basically complete. The walls are up, the ceiling's there. We were getting internal walls put in today and pouring some concrete, and we fully expect to have the building finished within the next few weeks. The main concern for us is going to be getting all the inspections done. And if the city reads its resolution as requiring us to have a final license from the state as well, that could be a concern. And I think that getting into that issue really requires a little bit of a recap of what the state licensing process is, because it's fairly complicated. It's a two-step process. Everyone that applied to the city had to have what's called a phase 1 pre-qualification, which is basically an extensive background check and financial review of the applicants to show that they're eligible to even own one of these companies. So we did that. Everyone did that before they applied. After you do a phase 1 and you get approval from the municipality, you have to do what's called the phase 2 step, or the step 2 process of the application. And that requires having at least a temporary certificate of occupancy so that you can finalize your phase 2 application, preferably a permanent, a full certificate of occupancy. And then you have to get some inspections scheduled with the state. The state regulatory agency, the MRA, will send out its inspectors. They do an inspection, they do an initial report. If there's any defects, you fix those, they re-inspect. And then the administrative rules that govern this give the MRA 90 days from the date that you finalize your application to make a decision. None of the applicants have any control over the MRA. And unfortunately, most of the state employees are still working telephonically and they're running a bit behind. So we expect that they're likely going to want to use that entire 90-day period or close to it. So what we're asking for is, in our initial request, we requested a 6-month extension from the original May 28th deadline, which would have bumped everything back to November 30th. That would have provided more than enough buffer room for everything to get done, get all the inspections, and to even have a final state license. I've talked with the ownership group and with our contractors, and we think we can be a little more ambitious than that. Mr. Ripley's proposed July 16th. We think that we could have all of the inspections done and at least a temporary certificate of occupancy, if not a full certificate of occupancy, by August 31st. Now, we can't guarantee that we'd be able to have the full state license done by August 31st because we can't finalize our application until we get that temporary certificate of occupancy, and then the state's on the clock for 90 days. But we can certainly have the initial inspections from the state done and have an initial report from the state to show what we need to get done to finalize everything. And really at that point, it's really just a formality type aspect. Unless there's something fundamentally flawed with the building from the get-go that everyone missed, you're going to be able to get everything done, finish the process with the state and get approved, and then you just got to pay your fees and you get your license. So what we're asking for is to get a little more time so that we can finish these inspections, finish the building, and actually get across the finish line so that we're not forced to walk away from a nearly $500,000 investment. And I think there's quite a few reasons why this is a reasonable request. You know, one, if this wasn't a marijuana business, a legal cannabis business, and we were just talking about a site plan issue, the city of Alma's ordinance says that site plans are generally good for 1 year, but as long as you've got substantial progress on the project, you can request, and the planning commission can grant, and often does grant, an extension of that 1 year deadline. And we're asking for something very similar here. It just had to come to the city commission because of the way that the ordinance was set up and the way the resolution was passed. Now, in the year, just over a year since the initial resolution was passed, there's a lot changed in the world, in addition to COVID-19. One, the state regulatory agency realized that it was too ambitious with some of its deadlines. Now, that qualification I talked about, that was initially only good for 1 year. The MRA has decided now that 1 year is too short of a time because nobody's getting these jobs done in 1 year. So the MRA is actually adopting new administrative rules that's going to make all pre-qualifications good for 2 years so that you don't have to reapply and start the process over in the middle. And they've told the expiration of everyone's pre-qualifications until the date that those new rules become effective. So the state itself has realized that 1 year was a very ambitious deadline for these types of highly regulated new businesses. And so they've granted at the state level a bit more time for people to work on things. Now, in addition to that, once we ran into the drain issue, things somewhat came out of our control. We realized that there was a county drain on the site, that it was going to need to be relocated. That required coordinating with both the city and the county and figuring out what kinds of easements and contractual agreements were going to be needed. It took a little while to get communication responses from the county, and ultimately that whole process took longer than we expected. Not the city's fault. We completely understand that, and we take full blame for that. Unfortunately, it set us back a little bit. once we got that done and got the agreements finalized, we were ready to hit the ground running, and we're very optimistic that we would have everything ready for a C of O inspection by March. But then COVID-19 happened. Once COVID-19 happened, the whole government across the country started responding, and eventually the entire construction industry was closed down. Now, we appreciate that the construction industry was, in theory, allowed to restart before much of the rest of the economy. But as Remy Jonah can explain, it really wasn't restarting at full speed. You had issues with getting contractors back on the job site. There were new requirements and safety procedures required by the state so that you could have contractors there. People didn't want to work in close proximity to each other. And then you had a backlog of supply chain issues with materials and orders that just weren't going full speed. So nothing started right away at full speed. And as you know, the city itself has just started really reopening and trying to get back to normal operations. We're facing very similar situations here and working as fast as we can, literally having people work overtime and into the night if necessary to try and get this job done. And I think that before I turn the floor over to our contractors and the ownership group, I think one other thing that's worth noting is that really what we need here is just time to get the inspections done and finish the building. I understand that Mr. Ripley has interpreted the resolution itself to require us to have all of the inspections and approvals done, but perhaps not necessarily to have the license in hand and pay the final fee. If that's all we're required to do, we think we can get that done by August 31st. We're very optimistic on that. If the commission was willing to give us more time, we of course would not turn down more time, but we're hoping that August 31st gives us enough time to get everything done and get the inspections done so that we can satisfy everyone. Now, I'll probably give some closing remarks just to wrap things up at the end, but at the end of the day, we have over almost $500,000 into this project. If we don't get some kind of assistance beyond the July 16th date that's been proposed, DNVK might as well walk away from this project, or it's going to have to consider whether to take legal action to try and protect its investment. Because without some kind of additional time, there's really no point in finishing this building. It just simply isn't going to be possible to have the building done, inspections done, and everything tidied up with the MRA at the state level by July 16th. And unfortunately, we're just in the tough position that we can't get it done, and we're asking you for help. So with that, I'd like to turn things over to Remy Jonah, who's our general contractor. He can give you a more granular level detail of where the project's at, what the timeline is for getting everything done, and how things are progressing. And then if you have any questions about the drain issue itself, Tim Stewart's happy to answer those for you. And then I believe Marvin and Darren both would like to make a few comments to the commission as well. So with that, I'll turn the floor over to you, Remy.
Hey, David.
Yeah.
David, this is Tony, and I just wanted to comment because David is correct, and Eric and Matt and I had discussions about this with David and with some of the other folks here. The way the resolution read and really the way that the policy read, I do think that so long as they have the inspections, the state inspections are done, and they're notified that they've passed, that would comply with the resolution, and it would comply with the policy. The fact that they have not yet received an actual license because of that 90-day window, I don't think should be held against them. So I think Eric would back me up, but we've discussed this, and I do think that's a fair read.
Okay, thank you, Tony. Mr. Jonah?
Everybody. Hello?
Yes, please go.
All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate you all taking the time. I think Dave did a good job touching base on some of the issues that we've been dealing with out there in regards to subcontractor help. That's definitely a big issue. A lot of these crews are coming back with half the people that they showed up with due to some people still staying on unemployment, or whether that be just relocating to different jobs, or subcontractors just not being able to afford as much help as they had planned prior to this whole experience we've all been going through. Other than that, as far as social distancing on site, we are in a unique situation to where, you know, typically on time constraints, we're trying to cram as many people onto a site as possible. Now we're in a situation to where we do have subcontractors that are asking that they do have the board there, just to keep themselves and their crew less exposed to whoever else might be walking in. We've experienced that on other jobs with some inspectors. We haven't really gotten to the full building inspector phase yet. So for instance, some inspectors ask us all to leave the room completely so they have the floor. So there's minor things that do affect. Other than that, as far as material, you know, luckily we've been able to receive majority of it on time. I'd say the biggest thing that held us up was the storm retention system that had to get buried underground. That thing was supposedly supposed to get there the day we were ready to start construction, but that backed us up for, I want to say, at least a week and a half. In regards to progress that we've made on site, we started full force May 11th. Since then, we have full underground installed. So we have a bore that was done underneath Warwick Drive to install our sanitary. Our water lines are connected and in the building. We have 2 underground detention systems on the north and south end of the site that are both installed and working correctly. There was the county drain that did need to get bypassed. That was a 36-inch storm line that when we started digging down, unfortunately, there was a lot of water that was unaccounted for. So there was pumping. There was a lot of stone that needed to get brought in to support the ground. And that alone, I'd say, probably costed us 2 weeks in unexpected time. Other than that, and from site work, we have the building up. The gentleman started framing out the interior walls today, and plumbing and rough electrical is what's on the schedule for the rest of the week. Right now, I'm anticipating we can get this whole thing completely dialed in by the end of July is what I'm shooting for right now. I hope to shave some days off of that. Next few weeks, we'll be working on site electrical and getting the parking lot installed for the exterior. And then from there, really, it's just finalizing our mechanical, electrical, and plumbing on the interior. All of that, like I said, hopefully we should be complete within the next 30 days or so. That's what I got as far as an update, and I hope that helped alleviate maybe some questions that you might have had to our progress on site.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jonah. Is there anybody have questions for Mr. Jonah? Any commissioners? Hearing none, who would like to speak next?
This is Marvin.
That'd be me.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead,
Tim,
Marvin.
I'll let you go
This is
first.
Tim Stewart.
Marvin, why don't you go ahead?
Okay. This is Marvin Carano, one of the owners of DNVK Lapeer Inc. It's good to see everybody working and staying healthy. I think the team's done a pretty good job so far of explaining our situation. I just want to touch on a couple things. Like Mr. Schaefer said, we have spent a considerable amount of money into the project, plan on spending more, and even more on, once we get open and operational, we do spend a lot of money on employee development. And I bring that up because we are creating jobs here. A lot of jobs, we anticipate maybe about 15 employment positions. Typically, we give a preference to city residents. And like I said, we do spend a lot of money at developing those employees. So I think that's important here in this, while we're going through this pandemic. Unemployment is just the highest it's ever been. We are doing new construction. We're increasing the property tax value. And if Alma ever decides to go for adult use, they will start getting substantial tax revenue from the adult use sharing tax. I think I've mentioned this before, but we're approved in multiple municipalities. One operating store in Lapeer, another one that's opening next week in Quincy, Michigan. These were existing buildings. They still took us over a year to just kind of put together. These are highly regulated facilities, so it does take a lot of time, effort, energy, and resources that go into them. All these other municipalities have given us extensions even before COVID. So I'm hoping that, you guys will kind of do the same thing here. I'd like to roll it back to Tim. I'd like to thank everybody for your time.
Okay, thank you, Marvin. Does anybody have any questions? Any commissioners have questions for Marvin? Excuse me.
I do.
Audrey.
Just curious, Marvin, how does your business improve property values? I'm just wondering.
Well, we purchased the property for, I think it was like 99,000. We're spending a lot of money on it, so that would increase the tax basis on the property. So the property taxes would be more.
So the real property you're constructing is what you were speaking of.
Yeah.
Right.
The building.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I just wondered.
Anybody else have questions? Hearing none, I think there was another gentleman, I believe, wanted to speak, and I see a phone number. I don't see a name on it. Is 0172?
Yeah. Yes, that's me. Tim Stewart with Hurley and Stewart Engineers. I just wanted to give a quick overview on the relocation of the county drain through this site. This is a tight site if you've seen the site plan. And while the drain commissioner was, the Gratiot County Drain Commissioner was good to work with, they definitely have a long process. This was a bit complicated because it's a good sized drain. It's 36-inch pipe. It cuts right through the front of the building, so it absolutely had to be relocated. And that was really a 3-month process by the time we were able to meet with the drain commissioner and their engineer, work out the design parameters and how that was going to be completed, dealt with the existing utility connections from the neighboring commercial properties, and then worked out the agreement with the drain commissioner on the relocated easement and stormwater operating agreement for that. So, well, like I said, they were good to work with, but it took a full 3 months, and that pushed back this schedule. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have on that.
Okay, thank you. Did anyone have any questions for Tony? Hearing none. Who would like to speak next? Is there another representative of either firm who would like to speak?
Mayor, if anyone on the commission has any questions for myself or Brian about any of the legal aspects, we're happy to answer that. Otherwise, I would just close in saying that, DMVK, as well as the other successful applicants here in Alma, have put a lot of money into this. They are all going to be job creators. If the city does decide to go the adult recreational use avenue, they will also all be good sources of tax revenue for the city through the tax sharing methods that are set up under state law. And I would just note that while I certainly feel for the position of the unsuccessful applicants who probably would rather us not get an extension, if you do not grant an extension here and we have to walk away, you're looking at least a year, if not more, before you're going to see any facilities opened up in Alma, which means that for the people and citizens of Alma and the surrounding area that need medical marijuana, they're going to have to look for somewhere else to go to get their medicine. So if one of the goals is to get this open so that your citizens can have access to their medicine in a timely manner, the quickest way to get things open is to give the existing successful applicants just a little bit more time so they can get everything wrapped up, and they'll be open before you know it. But again, thank you for your time, and we really appreciate you taking the time to listen to us.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Schaefer, and
Mr.
thank you
Schaefer?
everyone who spoke.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes, sir.
Roger.
You have spoken for DVNK. The request is from DVNK and Oak Flint, but we have not heard anything specifically about their building, and we have not heard anything from the center on Center Street. Is that in this, or are we to consider what you have said to go for both of these operations on the west side of town?
Sir, I would suggest that if you're going to grant extensions, I would suggest granting the extension to all three of the successful applicants to make sure that everyone's operating on an equal playing field. I'm not familiar with the circumstances surrounding the location on Center Street. We do not represent them. And for the purposes of tonight, we're not speaking directly on behalf of Oak Flint, but they certainly are requesting an extension I believe John McLeod and his team may be speaking on their own behalf. But as I said, I would propose that if you're going to grant any extensions, you do it across the board for all three of the successful applicants.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, anybody else have questions at this point? Any of the commission? Okay, hearing none. I do see Mr. McLeod is on popped up on the screen now. Did you want to speak on behalf of Oak Flint LLC?
Yes, and can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you so much. Yes, and I appreciate the time to speak. So I don't want to drag it out too long, but we've had a lot of the same challenges as the other applicant and his attorney so aptly pointed out. One particular issue that we had that we've really struggled with is when construction came back, our contractor did not. So we had to basically restart the process again with a whole new team, a whole new GC, and really kind of value engineer everything back to where it was more appropriate, but do so with a brand new group. And at the time when work is short, or there's a lot of work and not a lot of workers, it's been quite a challenge. So the time that has taken, has been disappointing, but it's a challenge we have to meet. We've spent close to $400,000 at our site. And those of you who see it in town, you've seen the construction take place. It's not going as quick as we want it to be, but we're certainly committed to moving forward completely on this project and excited to bring, a credible brand to Alma.
Okay, thank you, Mr. McLeod. Is there anyone else from the Oak Flint LLC group that cares to speak or address the commission, or is there any members of the commission that have any questions for Mr. McLeod?
Yeah, and I'm sorry, my representative Ben Joff is on. He wants to speak. He says he's having trouble getting in. His last four are 007. Looks like his hand.
I believe he's on now. If he just unmutes, he should be fine.
Thank you
very much. Yep. Thank you very much, commissioners. We appreciate your time and your service to your community. I think David did an excellent job. We find ourselves in many of the same positions as the DVNK group. Oak Flint is in the same thing. And I'd like to just reiterate a couple points. I'll try to keep it short, which is, even at the beginning, 1 year deadline was going to be a tight deadline. Even the state has seen that this is going to be a tight deadline and remedied it, and now give applicants 2 years to get their full license. So, we would ask that Alma would mirror what the state has done and adjust their policy so it does mirror with the state. Secondly is I think it's notable that, and although it is laudable that there was somewhat of an extension given, that extension was only merely based on the construction shutdown time. And, we all know as these executive orders have been lifted and construction has been able to return, we're not returning to a pre-COVID life. We're returning to a much different atmosphere. And I think it's important to point out that things have changed and it takes time to adjust to those changes. And a lot of things are taking a lot longer. And in fact, for instance, this meeting is still now a Zoom meeting because we are not comfortable having a lot of people in one place at once, and certainly I would guess that this commission isn't going to go, well, COVID was, the shutdown was 43 days long. So we'll start having commission meetings in person again in 43 days. I think we can all, again, agree that COVID has changed. We live in a post-COVID, or, well, I don't want to say post-COVID, but we certainly live in a different reality than what we lived in March. And to say, well, you had 43 days before COVID hit, and now, although everything has changed, we'll give you back those 43 days. I don't think that really takes into all of those different effects that COVID has had on our society and our construction industries and the entire world for that matter. So, we would ask that the commission to really, take that into account and understand, just as John has already pointed out, we had to have a new contractor. That contractor was not able to come back to the job. and part of that has to do with subcontractors. As you heard again from DVMK, they lost subcontractors. They have contractors that, subcontractors that don't want to show up, when there's certain people at the site, a certain number of people at the site. We are experiencing all those same problems right now. Obviously, a lot of construction was done. Again, as John said, you can go by the site and see it. We've completed all those underground stormwater systems, foundation, walls, steel is up, everything is ready to go. And we've invested a very substantial amount of money, hundreds of thousands of dollars. So we would just ask that this commission, give us the appropriate amount of time. We do believe 6 months would be great, as we put in that initial letter. We would certainly appreciate that, and we would certainly have it done in that time. So what we would really just ask is this commission, give us an appropriate amount of time to bring this project to fruition and to bring medical marijuana to the patients in the city of Alma and surrounding areas just as soon as we possibly can. So again, we do appreciate your time. We appreciate your service to the community, and we hope that we will be able to continue to work together and bring Oak Flint Medical Marijuana Provisioning Center to Alma. Thank you.
Thank you for comments. Any commissioners have any questions? And I apologize if... Sorry?
So he's asking 6 months from today?
6 months from the July 16th date or the original date?
Look, I don't know what the fall is going to be like. I would love 6 months from July. I do not expect that. We're not asking for it. Again, we think that there's probably some wisdom in this commission that can understand, what's happened to the world since COVID. And we would appreciate even 6 months from the original date, but we would certainly welcome, a November 2020 timeline also.
I think we need to clarify exactly what we're going to be talking about here, because that was now the fourth date that has been mentioned. David thought that he could probably have it done by August 31st, and yet there has been the mention that the state has gone to 2 years as opposed to 1 year, and now we're talking about 6 months from now, which is the first of the year. I think we have to agree on one of those dates before we come up with an extension period.
Well, I think you probably have to make it longer than what is just, Dave Ringel could probably speak to this better than any of us, that you think something's going to go smoothly, and then there's always 20 things that come up. So I don't know how we determine, but they can hope that they get it done by August, and I'm sure everybody would be thrilled to get it done earlier than whatever deadline we set. But I think we need to be, in my opinion, reasonable about making perhaps the deadline longer than what we think can happen, because things always come up that you don't expect.
And commissioners,
I really don't want to have to do this again.
Yeah, this is Tony. I think the ball's in your court as commissioners. You decide if you want to extend it, and you decide if you do want to extend it, how long you're going to extend it. They've given you various options, but I think it's up to you guys to decide, number one, are we going to extend it? And number two, if we are, how long? Based on what you've heard tonight.
Correct, Tony. I would agree. And I think both groups have made very strong cases for some sort of extension. Construction is challenging at best. I'm sure you're challenged every day with some of the decisions you have to make, Audra. You've got a major project under your wing right now that's just it's a very major project, and
I do, but
delays are inevitable in these things.
I do have a major project, 14,000 square foot building, and we're not having any of these issues that they have talked about. Our construction crews all came back full force, working 6 days a week. So I feel bad that they're having such issues with contractors, because we have had quite the opposite experience where everyone is just raring to go. So very, very different. I sit and listen to this, I'm really surprised. So.
Well, in an ideal world, that is how it would happen. But I think our experience has been more of, oh my goodness, we've done this, opened up this sinkhole and found 75 other problems. I think it's better to err on the side of.
Yes, from the experience of doing my street on Slater Street, they assumed it would be done in a few months, and we added, I think, 3 months, didn't we, David, or something like that? So I would suggest that what we do is we do 6 months from their 1 year. That gives them 18 months to get the project complete. And after hearing from all sides, it sounds like they would be able to do that at that time. That's what my suggestion would be.
Okay, let's wait just a minute. There are a number of things going on. One is we wrote a policy. We need to make sure we maintain the integrity of our policy.
Correct.
In light of that, now just listen. We have learned from the state that they have said in adjusting their policy, things are taking more time than they thought. Any policy is written, it's like building your house. Once you live in it, you make adjustments. So we have a policy we need to maintain. Two is, are we behaving consistently? If we offer other businesses opportunities to adjust because they've run into trouble, then we can, then we're behaving consistently. We're not treating these businesses any differently than another. The question then becomes, if we think we can adjust our policy, still maintain its integrity, we think that we can do these things that are consistent with what I guess the other, I could forget the committee, but one of the other commission does.
Planning?
Yeah, planning and zoning, what they do. Sorry, those are my senior moment. But the idea would be, we need to behave consistently as a city. And that would be the part. Now we can decide on whether or not we want to do time, but that would be the piece for me. Are we behaving in ways we're not just changing it because we're swayed by this? Are we behaving like we would? Planning and zoning, other.
If I may, somebody mentioned, and I forget who the speaker was, but it's been my experience, we're not a community that's challenged with an abundance of construction projects and business investment coming into our community. In the past, I think we've always been very accommodative of anybody that is investing in our community, because we appreciate those investments. We appreciate the jobs that they bring. And, I can't help but go back and forth. And I understand, both the desire to stick to our initial guns, which, we were kind of, it took us a long time to get to a year and to get the policy out there. And, we were walking blind. Nobody done this before. We kind of guessed it a year. We thought it was capable. Certainly the world has changed. And I understand the desire by some people to hold to our guns and to keep it at a year. By the same token, I can't help but think if it was any industry other than marijuana, there wouldn't be a question on the table as far as getting an extension. It would just be kind of automatic.
I don't disagree. That's what I'm saying is, if we have allowed this with other businesses, we've set a precedent as a city to do that.
But this is what I don't know the answer to that. So with me being a little bit newer as a commissioner, I don't know. Do we allow other businesses extra, an abundance of time? I mean, what do we do? And what's our normal protocol, I guess?
And perhaps David, and I believe we have allowed extensions for people to run into construction delays as far as finishing out building permits. I'm not sure, I haven't got extensions on mine in the past and different things that
we certainly did on the Opera House. We certainly made concessions on the Opera House project.
About a decade, yes. That's a good point, Roger.
But you didn't have people waiting in line to take it over. What would we be at, Tony, if these people challenged that was in the 4th, 5th, and 6th place?
Well, it's hard to say what a judge would do. I think there's a possibility of litigation, whichever decision you make. Certainly there's a possibility of litigation if you grant an extension, but there is I think probably at least as strong a chance of litigation if you don't. I can't really say which way the court will go. I mean, it's a tough decision, but I wouldn't predict it. I think it's probably really literally 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. I don't know that that one way is safer than the other. So I mean, I really think that it is really a question that you folks need to answer based on what you've heard, and I mean, from all of us.
My assessment is I think we have a strong case for allowing, given what's happened in the world, we have a very strong case for allowing an extension, because the world has changed so much and there are real dollars already invested in the ground in these projects. And, we also run the additional risk, and Tony said, there's a risk either way for litigation, but there's also a risk of our reputation of inviting people to invest money in our town and then kind of not allowing them to finish it for whatever reasons, just because they run into some hardships. And again, I can't help but think that if it was a different industry, if somebody was opening a restaurant or something different, that this really wouldn't be a question.
And I know when we were working on the water authority with the plant, and sometimes people just were not doing their work, and then there were repercussions or penalties, fines if they didn't meet certain deadlines. But I don't think this is that same type of situation, because something happened, a pandemic that none of us could have predicted. And so again, I'm quite confident, like Greg has said numerous times, that if this was a restaurant or a bar or dog park, whatever, that we would be, as a whole, perhaps much more understanding of the fact that there have been unanticipated circumstances that have delayed.
I agree with that, Roxanne, but I know everybody's going to say, I'm only saying what I'm saying because I am not for marijuana. We all know that. Everyone knows that I tried really hard to get you guys not to write the ordinance. But the difference with this versus a restaurant is we do have an ordinance in place. You guys spent a year and a half working up that ordinance and putting all of those, all that.
Right, with no idea of a pandemic coming.
Let me finish what I'm saying. So what I'm trying to say is I feel like we're going out of order here. I feel like if we're not gonna follow our ordinance, then maybe we need to go in and change that ordinance. That's all I'm trying to say. I feel really uncomfortable either way. I feel uncomfortable giving the extension because I don't really want to get sued by the people that are waiting in line. And I feel, uncomfortable going the other way and not helping these people out who've already put money into their buildings and going that way. So I feel like I know I'm new, but I feel like we're in a really, really precarious situation right now. And I feel like people are throwing out months and they're throwing out days and we don't really know what we're doing.
And we don't know because Tony advised that it's a 50-50 either way. That we would normally take advice from legal counsel about this, and there's no way to predict because this is an unknown commodity. And so we do need to make a decision and we do need to follow protocol. But I think that there's such a big unknown factor that we can't disregard that this was unanticipated and no way to plan for it.
Does the decision
may continue?
Greg, does the decision have to be made tonight?
I don't know as it has to. No, we're not under any obligation to make any decisions, but I don't see a great deal of benefit in waiting and delaying these groups any further unless, perhaps you can think of a reason that is there a certain fact? I think Roxanne and Tony both just indicated we've got to risk either direction.
Okay, I have a question.
I'm not sure there's a question of fact research. So Michelle, go ahead, please.
Sorry, Greg. I didn't mean to interrupt. We have another facility on Warwick Drive that has been backlogged, that's been sitting there in an empty building. I don't remember the stats on that right now, but what I'm just saying is these people have invested a lot of money opening new businesses in our town. There are ordinances that we have to follow. We did work on it for a couple years. We've been talking about planning, bringing businesses into Alma. So like Roxanne said, the pandemic happened, unpredictable. Everybody has different companies working for them. We couldn't even get the library painted because of the pandemic. So I think that we should pick a date, which we can all agree on, but I'm going to go back to my 6 months. That gives them 6 months to complete their construction. They have money invested. They have their project halfway, 3/4 of the way done. They have to wait in the state. I'm still waiting for my tax refund because I have to identify myself. So I know how getting things through the government are happening right now. So I would suggest that we, move forward on this. We've been talking about it for, an hour, or 45 minutes. We're thankful for everybody that came and talked to us today. Like Nick said, we had to check our times. We had to do that. But this is something that we need to move forward to as a city. This is new business in our company. We've heard for years how nobody wanted to open a business in Alma because it was so hard to get things approved. I think we're moving in the right direction. opening new businesses. They are not purposely building half of the thing and leaving town. We have a huge representation of all the people that are opening their business with us this evening, and I think we need to move forward, in my opinion.
6 months
Well,
would be the end of November. Is that correct? 6 months would be the end of November.
Motion, somebody.
6 months
Greg,
from.
I'll make a motion
28th would be the
that
end
we
of
give them till November 1st.
Make a motion. What was your motion, Larry? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
That will give them an extension to November 1st.
I second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and support on the floor now. Are there any comments or questions? Hearing none. Sarah, if you would please call the votes for us.
Okay. Mayor, can you start, please?
Yeah.
Larry?
Yes.
Nick?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
Audra?
No.
Roger?
Yes.
Roxanne?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Looks like that motion is carried. I guess our two groups have some work to do. I suggest you get busy. That November may seem like it's a long way off, but the dates roll by quickly. So
Mayor?
Godspeed to you.
Can I ask for clarification?
Yes.
Does the extension go for all three or just? Yes,
I took it as that, but let's hear from the motioner and the support, please.
Yes, all three.
Second. Three.
Thank you.
Don't believe we could do otherwise, but I don't know that for a fact. So I suppose we could, but that's even more risk than what we're assuming by either making or not making an extension. There certainly was risk in either direction we went.
Thank you.
Okay, that's done. So we'll move down to appropriations. Is anyone in favor of paying the bills?
Move approval.
Support.
We have a motion and support. Are there any comments or questions about the list of bills that we're paying? No questions. With that, we'll move it to a motion. Sarah, once again, if you would, please.
Thank you. Larry?
Yes.
Nick?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
Audra?
Yes.
Roger?
Yes.
Roxanne?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, that motion is carried and we've paid the bills. Commissioner comments. First up, I have Nick. Mr. Piccolo.
I knew you'd call on me. I was looking away.
That's why I called on you.
Just a thank you for folks that have been helping out in the parks and helping us keep the place look good, and also get an eye out for Celebrate Elm in the middle of everything. Just take a look for it, and everyone stay safe.
Okay, thank you, Nick. Roger.
Boy, so much to even talk about in here. I was making mental notes as we went through on all the things that were happening that I'm really excited about, and now I have forgotten all of them. But it's neat to see us moving ahead. Hopefully, we are going to get out of this thing. The comeback to Alma in the center of everything, I think, is absolutely great. I think we can do a lot of stuff with that to help us. I just hope we live to see it and that we don't have other problems. I have to say, I think our governor has done a good job in keeping us out of more trouble, and I hope that just continues. But thanks to everybody who has done such a absolutely phenomenal job during this period of time. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. Next on my list is Roxanne.
I have nothing to add. Congratulations to Eric and to our website gurus on their awards, and that's fabulous. We're proud of you. I'm quite confident that people think Eric is doing paid work when he's out there. So we know you're not, Eric. So thanks, everybody.
Yeah, Michelle.
I would just like to thank all the volunteers again, like Nick said, that came out and helped. I've had several people reach out to me. And so it's going to be fun. Everybody just keep going out and supporting your local businesses. And thanks to the group that planted the garden. It looks very nice. And keep enjoying the farmers market and again, the downtown businesses. And happy 4th of July, everybody.
Oh, we just wrote off June, huh? I know it does go by fast, so it's scary. Audra.
Yeah, so I also had a long list, Roger, and I forgot most everything because this meeting was so long and intense. Child Occupancy, we are back open. As far as we have staff in the building, we are not open to the public yet, but we are doing everything just as we always were, and we're doing baby pantry by appointments at this time. So if you're out and about and you hear of somebody that needs those baby items, please just let them know to call us. But it is nice to have staff back in the office and to see people again. I would encourage people, I know that the masks are a huge pain in the rear, and I'm not a big fan myself, but when you're out in the small businesses and the stores and you're going to the farm market, please wear them anyway to make people feel comfortable and keep people safe. It seems that now that we're opening businesses and things back up, we've kind of forgotten that COVID is even a thing. And so it's still very, very real and very much there. So just to stay safe, don't stop going to those businesses, but just, keep yourself safe when you're doing it. So I'm also looking forward to the Alma Aspires and Alma Action, Keep Alma Beautiful activities in August. I'll look forward to seeing what that's all about. And I think that's pretty much it, other than I'm very sad of the news today of JCPenney's closing. I know we talked about it for a minute in the beginning, but that's been a store in our community that's been a go-to for a lot of people. They're only really big department store. And it's too bad that we couldn't keep it going. So sad to hear that news today. Thank you.
Thank you, Audra. Larry.
Just wondered if anybody's seen the new photo studio downtown.
We all have, I'm sure. It looks great from the outside.
They did a beautiful job. It's sure an improvement for downtown.
You've probably had the honor of seeing the inside, haven't you, Larry?
I have. There'll be an open house pretty soon, but the outside turned out just beautifully.
Yeah, just the rest of us aren't connected enough to get on the inside yet. So flaunting your special connections again, Larry.
Did you guys,
my penny investment.
Larry, did you see the picture that Paige took of the rainbow over the downtown city of Alma? Did you guys see?
I did. I asked her if she found the pot of gold inside her building. I wanted to share.
I think that picture should be on our website.
Yeah, it's really pretty. Yeah, it was.
Send it over. We'll get it on there.
Okay, I'll have her do that.
Okay, thank you, Larry. Thank you, Larry. Appreciate that. I don't have much to add. I just echo what everybody else said. It's terrific to have the great group of volunteers that we have in town. People are getting things, making things happen. Looking forward to the future again as we open back up. I wish I could report to Audra and everybody else that I was 100% faithful with wearing a mask when I try and remember, and I'm probably 90%, but I have gone to the farm market and forgotten it, and probably some other places. So I will pledge to try and do better and encourage everybody else to do the same, because it's not, we got to remember I'm not wearing it for me. I'm wearing it to protect others. And I think that's the least we can do to help protect our brothers and sisters around the world, and certainly right here in town. So thank you for that thought, Audra.
Hey, Greg, can I say something about that real quick? So we had a Chamber of Commerce meeting, board meeting the other day, and Matt was on that meeting call, but someone made a good point that people don't realize that. So like when you go in, let's say the flower shop, and you decide not to wear a mask, and then I walk in, I may not come back and shop there for a while, because I'm not going to feel comfortable that those, that florist is not enforcing the mask rule. So it really does affect kind of the small businesses. And I saw someone post on Facebook the other day about the farm market and how they're not going back to the farm market for quite a while. because people weren't wearing masks. So like you said, it does protect other people, but it also just ensures comfort for people. And I think, we really want to get these small businesses back going, to their capacity that they were. And so if that helps them out, I mean, I don't know, it's just a thought. So
I'm sorry.
I just wanted to add that because that was a big discussion for the chamber meeting. And I just, there's a lot of different perspectives with it. So.
There certainly is. And I apologize to everyone at the farm market for when I did forget it. And I will pledge to do better. And because especially the vulnerable population, there are vulnerable people among us that we could spread this to that may be very seriously impacted. And we don't want to do that.
And that person,
I'm one of them.
Said it was because of you, Greg. They're not going back. I'm just, they were like, our mayor's not wearing a mask. I'm not going back. That's it.
I'd offer to deliver their vegetables, but they probably don't want me coming to their door either. Okay, with that, Sarah, do you have any comments?
No, I don't have anything. Thank you.
Okay. Tony.
Just two things. First, I wasn't in the last meeting, but Elma lost a giant. Scott Sheldon passed away. Maybe now it's been almost a month ago. But I just wanted to. There wasn't a board. There wasn't a charity. There wasn't a fundraiser that he didn't want to get involved in. He was an Elma High School grad, I think, in 1974, and a real credit to the community. And I just wanted to. I think we all ought to remember him fondly and pray for the family too. Lastly, on a lighter note, I want to thank my IT person. That's Vinny Costanzo. His closet is right behind me. Without him, I couldn't do this, and we wouldn't have this brilliant background. So, Vinny, thank you very much.
We appreciate that he cleaned his closet for us and got everything all straightened up there.
And that is clean for him.
Yes.
By the way. Yeah.
And I'm sure that as IT support, that doesn't come cheap. So I'm sure when you write the check, he'll appreciate that as well.
Well, he works cheap. It's a six-pack, basically. But,
Maybe a meal once in a while?
Yeah, right.
Okay, Matt. Where'd you go?
I'm right here.
I
just wanted to add, we've been talking a lot about, some of the possibilities that we could do downtown as we go forward. Liquor control has been working with the state legislature, and there is some updates, and they're hoping to see some things change by the end of this week that could be in place for July 1st. So I think we've already talked a little bit about, we have had some good contact with folks downtown looking to see what we could be able to do. The piece of legislation that should be coming out this week may open up some of the areas that we've already talked about. If we were to close a section of street that would allow for the alcohol and for them to be able to serve and do things. So I think we're on the right path of keeping those things in mind as we go forward, especially as we're starting to look further down, hopefully into August when we're talking about the celebration to do that. Some of those things will be in place. So I'll keep you informed on that. And like I say, it's amazing how quick things can move when you have a 4th of July holiday coming up in the state and they want to make sure they can get something done. So maybe by this Friday, we'll have some clarification on that.
Just wonder if they want to get things done or if they want to get out of town for the 4th of July themselves. Maybe that's where the pressure is coming from, huh? Okay, so with that, appreciate your comments, everyone, and we'll open it up to the public. Is there any member of the public that would like to address the commission? I think it's mostly staff, but you're still welcome to speak if you'd like. Just somehow you got to catch my attention, or Sarah's attention, probably more importantly. But hearing none, so with that, we would entertain a motion to adjourn our meeting for the evening.
So moved.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion and support. And I guess you can pick either Michelle or Nick. Sarah, and with that, if you'd call the roll one last time.
Thank you. Nick?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
Audra?
Yes.
Roger?
Yes.
Roxanne?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes.
And Larry?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. I appreciate it. And then thank you, everybody. I appreciate the whole commission. Tough decision tonight. It was not an easy one, and there's potential consequences either way we went on it. But I do appreciate everybody's willingness to speak openly, share your thoughts. Great team, and I'm proud to be among you all. So Thank you very much, and everybody have a great evening. Stay safe.
Bye.
Good night, everybody.
Seeing everybody.